The fourth day of the 2021 Nigeria Fintech Week featured interesting topics and developing trends that are shaping the industry. It featured an impactful panel session on fintech gains in the capital market, which was an opportunity for regulators and operators to discuss digital transformation in the market. Mr. Mike Odusami, the CEO of Maxud Consulting, provided insight on ecosystem synergy and cybersecurity.
These are numbers that came through NIBS, and they're mostly focused on the normal banks in Nigeria. But I think it reflects what happened in the rest of the industry, really. These are reported data. Some of the numbers I'm using came from reported data. As you can see, everybody runs on mobile. The speaker just before me, and I can guess like maybe 90% of the fintech practitioners have their application or services through a mobile device. So that means mobile is basically the client where the interface that every customer has to come through to access most of the fintech services that we offer. But what that means is that it's one of the most vulnerable platforms, as some of you will know. So there's a lot of vulnerabilities there. I listed some applications that we have on mobile, from crypto to the new e-Naira that just came through. So they're all there. So, and if you look at that number here, there's a lot of more fraud attempts on the mobile platform from last year, according to the data from NIBS. And, I need to apologize that, most of what I'm talking about is financial services, because I know fintech is way more than just financial. There is health tech, there's agri-tech, there is insure-tech. But I think the same rule applies. If it's important, if it's valuable, people will come after that account. Even in health information, some people will have value going after health information. So those are some of the numbers, just to kind of hopefully get you to focus on security as you design new services or your new apps. You definitely should pay attention to it. So even more information, I think the number that stands out there is that 73% of the fraud that was reported through NIBS was through social engineering. And that's a big part, because it means that people are calling people up or using email or sending fake link via email and getting people to click on them. I think the worst case is when people actually call up somebody to get the PIN number or to get the OTP that they're generating to access an account, and people actually fall for that. So in your design, in your services, you have to take care of those kind of vulnerabilities as you design to make sure it doesn't happen. A lot of this, hopefully people are familiar with this, PIN, lack of 2FA, two-factor authentication. If you bank with most of the major banks in Nigeria today, you will have to have a token that generates a number for you to be able to access the account. So hopefully everybody's familiar with this. SIM swap is a big one. I think there's a lot of effort towards taking care of that problem with identifying the device itself and so on, and making sure that when a device changes and they're trying to access the system. So what are the implications of this for us that startup? Again, most of most of the innovation is ahead of the regulations in a lot of cases. But as you're building your brand, you have to be careful that you don't want to lose your customer trust, even at the time of starting your service. It's very important that you take care of customer data. And I think for people in the audience, I think intellectual property is also a very, very important part of what we do. So you want to make sure that you have the necessary controls in place to make sure that you don't have insider threats or whatever access. But let me bring your attention to the financial penalties that we're beginning to see, especially on the data privacy front. It's happening a lot. I mean, I'm sure people have read headlines, British Airways, Marriott Hotels, these are hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars in fines. But we're beginning to see that in Nigeria through NIDA. There's a carrot and stick approach at the moment where they're kind of taking it easy with a lot of companies. But I think we're beginning to see examples. I saw a couple of weeks or months ago, a company was fined 10 million naira for data privacy breach. A lending company, actually, I think they were misusing customer data. They were even putting trackers on their app to know where customers are without their consent. So it's something that people should pay attention to. If you're not compliant, you better start thinking about it if you're a fintech. And like I said at the beginning, if you want to connect to any of the major banks today and you access their customer data, you need to have some compliance in place. The bank will demand of you to have that data compliance or NDPR is what we use here in Nigeria. Financial losses through ransomware and so on probably might not be an issue because I'm assuming, again, this is an assumption that most of the fintech probably host their information somewhere in the cloud. But then again, it's still vulnerable. As long as it's accessible, it's vulnerable. So what you need to make sure is that your cloud provider or whoever is hosting your system complies with certain standards. There are standards out there for cloud service providers that you need to comply with. Okay, a lot of acronyms here, but hopefully some of them are familiar with. I just kind of selected a few. There's a CBN guidelines on what they call mobile money operator, which kind of gives you a lot of security guidelines of the minimum standards you must meet. You must have triple days encryption. You must have transaction security. You must have phone number associated with the account and all of that thing. But I'm sure you can all access that information to go into the depth of it. So those are all the things that you should have at the back of your mind as you develop your services, and I'm hoping that people are already doing that. If you have anything to do with card payments, PCI DSS is kind of like the global standard that every card have to adhere to. And unfortunately, even though you're a fintech, you're relatively small, as long as you do it, you have to go through that compliance and make sure that you comply with that standard. PSD2 is an open banking standard that kind of took off a lot in Europe. I'm not sure how much it is here in Nigeria, but basically, it allows you to connect with banking applications via API, open standard API. So a customer has more flexibility to move their accounts or do stuff on their accounts. But there's a minimum requirements. You must have what they call a secure customer authentication. It must be 2FA. You can have OTP, dynamic OTP linking, where the two-factor authentication, the numbers that is generated, is actually an encode of the transaction. So if anything changes within that transaction, that OTP will not be valid. So very, very sophisticated technology being applied there, transaction signing and so on and so forth. IT data security, I mentioned the cloud standard earlier, the SOC 2, I think they're up to SOC 3 now, right now, which is the service operator standards that they use. So if you're hosting out there, if you use Microsoft Office, for example, it meets that standard as a cloud application. ISO 27000, very, very important. I hear a lot about it here. Make sure you talk to your compliance organization. If you are not there, let them assess you. It needs to be done. And lastly, I'll talk about the data privacy one a little bit because what NDPR does is basically saying that if you handle personal data of customers, I think if it's more than 2,000 customers, then you need to have an audit in place. And you need to have it reported on an annual basis. So very, very important that people pay attention to that. So on your website, you should have information that gives them, I'm sure you're all familiar with when you go to some website today, it asks you about, do you have set these cookie settings and so on and so forth. You must give your customers or visitors to your website a choice whether they accept your policies on privacy before they go on. So these are just my recommendations on some of the things we can do to enhance our ecosystem as far as cybersecurity is concerned. Definitely we need a lot of more participation, more events. From every member of the association, they should be free to organize, a webinar or whatever on cybersecurity and share ideas and so on. The key part is that we continue to be part of the policy formulations around cybersecurity so that we can get invited. So a lot of these events that are taking place, very, very important. So hopefully we also help to shape some of the standards or recommendations that is very, very specific to fintech. It's really unfair for a fintech to have to adhere to the same standard as, say, a bank that has 1 million customers today. So very important. Best practices. And the last point really is really about maybe it's time we also have a reporting system within the association where people can report maybe anonymously cyber threats or risks that they face so that we can share it amongst ourselves and collaborate and so that everybody is aware of what's going on. So it might actually be a good idea to do that. I suggested there's an accelerate group. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that. Within FinTech Nigeria, they have different group on different areas. So we should start thinking about the cybersecurity.
The event featured presentations on enabling innovation and the economy with 5G network, launch of products by Fast Credit and Sofre, where panelists shared their views on cybersecurity governance.
The status of 5G in Nigeria trial has been done. The Federal Executive Council has approved a policy. The There's a draft deployment plan already in place, and the Commission is reviewing the frequencies or spectrum that were allocated during the last 2019 World Radio Conferences, and a committee is working on the auctioning of some frequencies for 5G. So 5G is going to be a reality in Nigeria in a while. Socioeconomic impact of the technology, it will facilitate development of new connected healthcare, satisfying the 4 Ps of medicine, that's predictive, preventive, personalized, and participatory. You're able to predict because of the data that has been acquired over time. Because of that, you are able to determine and adjust things that will prevent the shortcomings that had been recognized. Just to say that the 5th generation of mobile technologies have put the world in a place where there are so many opportunities, so many realities that we have not seen yet that are going to come because of the benefits and the 5th generation of mobile technologies in the world and in Nigeria. For some statistics, it said that about $4.1 trillion has been, the global economy has witnessed about $4.1 trillion investment, and that $2.2 trillion are going to be added to the economy between 2024 and 2034 by the implementation of 5G technologies.
I want to talk about the fast credit mobile application, and because this is the integral part of our product launch, the fast credit mobile application. Now, it's a unique and multi-product app, which I would say is unprecedented in the industry because of its features and functionality. So it features a wide tier of the public sector clients and MDAs, while also addressing the needs of the private sector workers. What I mean is that it has been designed for both the private and public sector workers to meet their lending needs. All right. So Fast Credit Mobile is available on the Play Store, like I said earlier, and will be available on the App Store at the earliest. So of course, we have value-added services. And that I would talk about utilities like the airtime purchase, cable TV subscription, and the like. So all of these are incorporated in our app, which you can visit the Play Store to download it and then have a feel of how it works end to end.
Sofri is a mobile application, a digital bank. A digital bank, part of the DLM Capital Group, and we are glad to be associated with the Fintech Association of Nigeria. So we operate under the microfinance bank license, which means that we're regulated by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, we have come up with an amazing banking application that while we are here is the pre-launch of that application, which you would see by next month, by November, December, towards the end of the year, we expect to launch it fully. It's a fully equipped digital bank that it's easy to use, to operate. Now, part of what we have tried to create is an application that you can enjoy some level of romance with your phone, with your banking services. I think you should give a round of applause to that.
There are a lot of activities that are going on also in the capital market, which fintech can also facilitate to ensure improvement in the delivery of service and even increasing the market participation of retail investors in the market. All this is going to impact positively on the activities of the fintech. And based on what we have seen so far in the last 3 years, I think is on the upward trend, which I believe is going to continue to impact the activities of the fintech. Looking at what we have, is our market robust enough to actually accommodate the need and the capital requirement of the fintech that we have? Yes, I will say yes. In terms of the fund, if you look at the fund available in the pension industry, I think what it requires is just to have a right framework in place for them to be able to invest properly in this fintech company, such that later they can then come back to the market and list their company. I would say the market is robust enough, but it's going to grow over time for the fintech players to be able to raise the required capital and benefit the more in the market.
In my professional opinion, the Nigerian capital markets have helped unlock funding both in Nigeria and abroad. There's been talk about funding from abroad. And I believe that the capital markets in Nigeria have made that possible. And such funding would not have been available without the active role of the capital markets. And the active role of the capital markets in Nigeria has also been one of the factors making Nigeria a national fintech hub. Okay, so I can confidently say that, apart from maybe, let's say, Kenya, South Africa, and country here or there, Nigeria is one of the strong national fintech hubs, and this can be attributed to the function of the capital markets.
The challenge there, which may go eventually, is look at where fintechs are at the moment, right? I mean, like one of the speakers had said earlier on, we've seen a lot of inflows coming for fintechs from VCs, from angel investors. They're always raising. I believe that maybe over the last 6 years, fintechs have raised close to $800 million. They've raised this from venture capitalists, from angel investors. Even some of them have sort of crowdfunded it or bootstrapped. They have raised it. They have raised it without the capital market structure. And then they probably, all that is required to raise is the investor comes on board, does his DD, likes what he sees. They say, okay, we're trying to raise maybe $5 million. We're going for a Series A. They raise that, then they go for a Series B, then they go unicorn. They've done all of this in a particular way, just by showing the investor their books, doing the DD, and then they just sign the documents, they give the investor shares, and they're moving to the next level, and they're scaling. Listing, however, brings a level of regulation into what they are doing. So whether you want to list on the growth board or FMDQ, you will then be looking at the listing requirements. There are reporting obligations, to the self-regulatory organizations like the NGX or the growth board, and also to the SEC. So the question is, how many fintechs would want to subject themselves to that kind of scrutiny when they can just keep riding high and announcing that they have now raised $500 million and are heading towards triple unicorn or something like that? I have had a few fintechs that have actually approached me and they've said they want to list on the growth board. But when we've gone through a few of the requirements, they then start to question whether they're ready for that. But I would say that it makes a lot of sense, listing, because it then shows the maturity of the market. It then encourages what the growth board was set up for. And I believe that a few companies have recently, gotten listed on the growth board. And for the fintechs, I think what it does is that it creates assurance to the investors and customers, that the fintechs are beginning to grow and scale in the market. Some people still look at fintechs like a fad. They're still wondering, okay, that this guy is a flash in the pan. Will they take off when we invest? And I think some of the Ponzi schemes that seem to turn up these days also lends credence to the fact that fintechs may not be trusted so much, especially those that probably give high interest returns for most of what they do. But listing sort of gives that level of credibility, because you would presume that anybody who is listed would have gone through some metrics and scrutiny. Again, I would say that listing does give some bragging rights, because if you are one of the first fintechs within your space to list, you could then claim that you're listed. You're probably the only fintech in that space, whether it's in lending, whether it's in robo advisory, and say that you are the first to get listed in that space.
As Nigeria continues to witness the evolution and growth of the fintech industry, collaboration with the capital market ecosystem and investments in cybersecurity will be critical for the sustainability and viability of fintechs in the country.